Trauma Therapist Podcast Plus listeners can listen to episodes early and ad-free right now. Become a Plus listener by going to Apple Podcasts, searching for the Trauma Therapist Podcast, and signing up today. Welcome to the Trauma Therapist Podcast, a show about the incredible people dedicated to helping those who have experienced trauma. My name is Guy McPherson, and my mission is to raise the awareness of trauma and to inspire each of us to help those around us. Here we go. Nate, you ready to do it?
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, folks, welcome back to the podcast. Very excited to have as my guest today, Nate Peereboom. Nate, welcome.
Thank you so much. Great to be here, Guy.
Awesome. So Nate Peereboom is the CEO of JotPsych, one of the amazing sponsors. Proud to have for this podcast. JotPsych is a best-in-class AI-scribe for behavioral health clinicians. The software reduces documentation time by around 90% for psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, and therapists. And since its commercial launch 16 months ago, JotPsych has scribed for over 700,000 patient encounters across the US, Canada, Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. Damn, Nate, that's a lot. That's a crazy amount.
It blows my mind every time I see the numbers. I think that we're part of a real shift in the industry right now where people are saying, we want to take excellent care of our clients. We want to pay really special attention to our patients and the people we're trying to serve. And part of the way we're going to do that is by leveraging AI to get all the admin work out of the way.
Yeah, exciting. We're going to get into that in more detail. But before we do anything, share with the listeners where you're from originally and where you are currently.
Okay, so I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. For those of you who have not been to the great city of Cleveland, Ohio, it is a hospital town. Both my parents are in medicine. My dad is a neuro-oncologist and my mom is a palliative care nurse practitioner. And so I grew up in a very medical home. And now I live in Washington, D.C. I've kind of migrated across the Midwest to the East Coast, and this is where we call home.
So obviously with that background, we could see the connection there, but give us some more specifics. How did all this start for you? How did you get to this point?
Yeah. So, if you're around anyone who works in behavioral health or medicine writ large, you know that administrative work, documentation is absolutely exploded over the last 2 decades. And it came from, I think, a good place. The US government wanted there to be structured medical data. They wanted that structured medical data to be shareable and interoperable across providers and across clinicians. But the only way to create that data for 20 years or so has been to have clinicians, therapists, counselors manually inputting notes, manually writing notes. And this has just absolutely exploded the amount of time that people are spending on this. And so I saw this with my parents. Both my parents are really assiduous clinicians. They just spent a huge amount of time caring for their patients, but also doing all of this after work. They call it pajama time. I think that's the term in the industry. And so I ended up not going into medicine. I don't want to say because of that, but it factored into it. And when I went off to college, I knew I was really, really interested in technology. So I went to the University of Chicago. I studied econ and molecular engineering. And then afterwards went into technology, worked for 5 or so years across different firms. And about 3 years ago, I set off to start my own company. And at the same time, I was, I've been really good friends with my co-founder, Jackson, since college. And we both were really interested in how artificial intelligence was changing, what it was. We were following it, and we wanted just a sandbox to play in. So I said to him, I was like, let's just spend 2 hours a week working on this problem. Like, what if my mom didn't have to write a note from scratch every time? She still has to read it. She still has to do some editing. There's stuff that's unsaid in a visit. But what if we could take away that first draft? And I'm blown away by the pull that we've gotten from people who are also interested in this problem. I mean, it was incredibly easy to work with people in the medical field, doctors, nurses, therapists, counselors, psychiatrists, And what that allowed us to do is really quickly develop a product that people loved. So that's kind of how we arrived here. It really started out as a 2-hour-a-week project that was just based in remembering what it was like to grow up at home in Cleveland.
It's very interesting. You said econ and was it molecular engineering?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
I mean, Jesus. And then you've got those pieces. You have your parents who are so very interesting background. But you come from an interesting time when you're right kind of in the midst of AI. There are a lot of people, I mean, let's get the elephant out of the room here. A lot of people are like, WTF, AI, how am I going to incorporate that in this kind of sacred relationship I have with my client? I don't know. How do you deal with that? What do you say to that? How do you respond?
Yeah. I think that there are kind of two categories of response. The first is just to look clinicians in the eyes and look therapists in the eyes and say, you're right. Like AI is something that is powerful, but it is something that needs to be really carefully handled and really carefully constructed. And one of the benefits of JotPsych is that we've gone to great lengths to provide all the HIPAA infrastructure that allows ambient recording and note-taking to be something that's really safe at a technology level. So I'll just give you a few examples. We have like the very first layer of our software in JotPsych redacts all identifying patient information. I mean, that's a pretty amazing thing because what it means is that you can actually take a note that is completely like devoid of all the information that would tie that note back to a singular human being. And it allows you to work with the note in a way that that just has a very small surface area privacy-wise. Now, later, you can tag the note to the patient if you want to like kind of start creating a patient history or a client history, but not necessary. We also use, the highest standards of encryption. We store in HIPAA compliant facilities. We only work with partners that have like healthcare specific contracts with us. So we're really, really careful about that. And we never train on any data. We never send your data to a company that would train on it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I think that there's a really, really significant betterment in modality when you're allowed to really be present with, with your client. And I guess I'll just give a small story. I actually haven't spoken with very many people about this, but when I was in college, I needed to go see a counselor. And so, I was just going through, everyone goes through things in college. And, I was going through a time and I went to a counselor at our school's counseling center. And I walked in feeling very vulnerable. And that counselor, I think, in part because they probably were worried about documenting everything, just really did not make me feel very safe. I kind of felt treated like a piece of cattle. And I never went back. And I think that view, it was such a harmful moment for me in that point where I was really needing to be witnessed in a full way, that it really also locked into my brain this idea that allowing clinicians, allowing therapists, allowing counselors to be fully present with their clients and to really fully witness them as human beings is something that is going to dramatically change the openness to therapy, and also the outcomes of therapy. I mean, there are studies that show that the single biggest determinant of whether or not therapy actually works is the human connection that a therapist has with their client. And that's exactly what we're trying to really maximize for here.
I love that. I love that story. Appreciate you sharing that. So taking a step back here, what is JotPsych? Give us the broad picture.
Totally. So JotPsych has started out as an AI-scribe. So you walk into a room, you click start, you do your encounter with your client, you click done, and you get a full note. And that note is
what, on my phone, on a computer, or on the app? What?
Yeah, so you can record on your phone. We've got a Chrome extension. You can just use our website.
Okay.
But it's essentially listening to the conversation. And it doesn't retain any audio. So we don't actually hold any audio files. It's one of the counterintuitive things that the people don't initially understand when they think about AI scribes. But what we allow you to do is create documentation that's consistent and that's completely sensitive to your content format and styling preferences. So we know, this is one of the really exciting things about trauma care right now. There's an explosion in the number of modalities that people are spending time in. There's traditional, for lack of a better term, like talk therapy, but, ketamine is kind of exploding right now. Obviously the psychedelic world, TMS is really big. There's all sorts of sub-segments within therapy itself. So, we talk to folks who work with kids in schools, and that's its own space. We work with methadone clinics that are really interested in the way that trauma interacts with opioid use and communities that are affected by that. And so what we've tried to do is give folks a base AI-scribe that is hyper specific for psychosocial behavioral conversations. So we've got over 70 different modules. You can mix and match, create the perfect note. But we also, anytime you change something in a note, our software learns. And so over time, you get actually a note that is perfectly reflective of what you would have written had you just taken a pen and paper and written it yourself.
So just to kind of reiterate here for our listeners, let's say I'm a therapist, client's coming in, I have JotPsych on my phone, I put my phone down, I hit click, and it goes. It's recording. It's recording the information. It's uploading it to the website, but it's not retaining it.
So we don't retain any of the audio file. What we do is we take the transcript and we scramble that transcript up, and then we use that transcript to write each individual section. So I'll give you an example. We have some clinicians who are very interested in dreams. They're followers of, Carl Jung, and they believe that their medical note or their clinical note or their therapy note should have a section about the patient's perception of their own dreams, what those dreams actually are, how they interact in dialogue with them, what they mean. And in most medical software, you just can't do that. It's so rigid, or it's made for someone who practices primary care. And so, it's all, medication based, or it's, looking for vital signs. But what we've done is we've allowed folks who do behavioral health and who have really sensitive, unique, nuanced records to build those records in an automated way that, again, allow them just to be super present in the room.
When I was talking to one of your colleagues, Adam, about this, when he was describing it to me, he said that there are different templates that therapists can choose from to kind of make it more unique for them, to them, which I think is phenomenal. So what I love about this, and what you were saying about initially up front, was that you just put it down, put the phone down there, hit record, and then it allows you to be present. It's like you don't have to worry. Oh my God, did I catch that? They're talking about something, and then you're thinking about something else, trying to remember that. This is allowing the clinician, the therapist, to be completely in the moment.
Yeah. And, at the end, if you decide, hey, I don't want this note, or I want to just put it in my EHR, or I want to store it in my own place, if you click delete on a JotPsych note, it's gone forever. So it's really designed to just be a tool that helps you do whatever you want to do in however way you want to do it.
What have you heard in terms of pushback from people? Things that you want to make sure you address. I'm curious, because it seems to me like, in a sense, and maybe things are changing, tell me, but some people could say, again, bringing something like this into the room is almost antithetical to what I'm doing or trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that people do feel nervous about talking to their clients about JotPsych. And it's really interesting because once you bring it up once or twice with a client, I think people are blown away by how receptive the general public is to these tools being in the room. So the way that we encourage folks to talk about JotPsych with their clients is to say, hey, I have this tool that helps me take better care of you. It helps me be present. It takes more accurate notes than the notes I would have written. And it follows all the laws and all of the, best technical approaches to security and privacy. I don't have to use it. If you want, I can I've got my notebook, I've got my laptop. It's not required. But if you would
go home and spend 2 hours doing notes, but it's okay.
No, I mean, it's all in the way you do it.
Sure,
we don't want anyone to feel pressured to do that. But, the way that you talk about JotPsych to your clients is material to their comfort with it. We've never heard of pushback that ended someone's use of JotPsych. We've heard certain patients be like, I just really don't want this recorded. But that's not ever stopped a clinician or a therapist from using JotPsych. Now, I want to acknowledge something that's kind of interesting. And actually, Guy, I'm curious for your view on this. One thing that we're hearing, and I don't mean this in any kind of political way, but we have heard that people are more sensitive to the collection of medical information over the last several months, that there's an attention being paid to the way that repositories of information about people's gender identities, backgrounds, immigration status, et cetera. And I think that that's another place where we're really keeping our ear to the ground in terms of what makes everyone safe and what makes everyone feel comfortable and what makes everyone excited to use an AI scribe like JotPsych. And so, to that, I would say, we want to give you all the control. So if you would like to configure JotPsych so that it never retains information, for example, about someone's gender identity, or never contains any information about immigration status, or auto deletes your note afterwards, you can do all of those things, which is really powerful. So I think that ultimately, this is coming. AI is going to be a part of everything that we do, and we want to hear from people who have opinions about it, who are in the therapy world, who are treating people affected by trauma, and say, hey, I wish I could use JotPsych, but there are these 6 things that need to change. We're very receptive to that. One of the things that I think a lot of software people like myself get wrong in the behavioral health space is they are overconfident about their ability to predict and to understand what therapists want and what actually is the right thing for them. And you would never do this with a cardiologist. You'd never go to a cardiologist office and say, hey, I have the software for you and you're going to like it. But a lot of folks in the therapy world, I think, are the public is generally overconfident about what they believe therapists should do and how they should operate. And we, at our core, in our DNA, are really, really resistant to that view. We spend hundreds and hundreds of hours just talking with therapists. I probably have 300 customers who have my personal phone number. I'm going to have to change my personal phone when I'm done with this company because I just have too many customers who text me and call me. But the upside of it is that we've done a lot to make JotPsych reflective of what therapists want, rather than what we at a first principles level would build if we didn't talk to them about it.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, you had me at, it redacts all the identifying information of the client. That is crucial. I mean, I think that alone will set a lot of therapists at ease. Being HIPAA compliant, of course, is huge. But along with that, though, this idea of, not having to worry about catching everything and being able to be present and in the moment because it's being recorded safely, securely. That is crucial. That is crucial. And I don't want to say especially for people who work with people who've been impacted by trauma, but I will say that people who work with people who've been impacted by trauma, that relationship is crucial, obviously, and it's crucial for everybody. But I have a very strong feeling that a lot of therapists listening to this would be put at ease with that and be looking forward to being able to be at ease and to be more open and more creative too. That's another thing. When you're present, you're able to be more creative. You're not worrying about all the other admin stuff that needs to be done. So that's one of the things that I really love about this.
Yeah. And it's such a good point regarding the creativity. I was biking to the office today and I was thinking about, sometimes I go into these daydreams where I think about all the really amazing ways that patients and clients are going to be served by our software. And I had this image in my mind of like a lake that was kind of mysterious, where you didn't really know what was under the surface. And I imagined a scientist going up to that lake and being handed like a pad of paper where they had to, essentially be writing down and, answering questions about what they saw in the lake. And, maybe there's a fish, maybe there's some plankton, maybe there's like, some algae on the surface. And I thought about how different that approach is, where you're writing down just what you know to ask, like the known unknowns, so to speak, versus a method where a biologist were to approach that lake and take a sample of the water and go back to a lab and say, hey, you know what, for the next 5-10 years, if a new methodology arises, if new research comes about that allows me to understand this water better, I've already got the water and I can run it through. And I think about this with, I'm forgetting who said this, but, my dad's a neuro-oncologist and I'm kind of aware of, I'm very aware of how hard everything related to behavior and the human mind and the brain is. There's someone who said, the human brain is as known to us as the surface of the moon. The amount of change and research and development that we're going to enjoy over the next 10, 20 years is enormous. And part of taking advantage of that is having unstructured medical data, the pond water, so to speak. And I think that that's one of the really exciting things about feeding, to your point, the creative process that we want clinicians to be walking through when they treat clients. To say, hey, this new paper came out. It's about the relationship between a GLP-1 inhibitor and depression, or a GLP-1 inhibitor, or something like that, and to be able to actually find all your clients who are on Ozempic or something like that. It's so hard to do without having that as structured data. But now we are in the moment. This is the moment where AI can be leveraged to essentially keep the water and continuously study and improve the way that we're treating it. So I think that the creative options for research being actually effective in terms of like touching clients and patients is absolutely enormous. And I'm so excited about it. And I think that JotPsych is going to be one of the companies that really drives that and helps support that process for clinicians who and therapists who choose to pursue it.
That's awesome. So as we kind of wind down here, share with us and our listeners how therapists can get involved with this. What do they do? How do they get access to it?
Yeah. So if you go to jotpsych.com, you can start a free trial today. I think we have a discount code, TPP.
Right.
And Guy, you can explain more about that. But here's what I want people to know. One, setup doesn't require a credit card. Setup takes 3 minutes. Truly, like you can go in, click start trial. 3 minutes later, you can create your first note. And you don't have to do it with a real client to start out. I think that one thing that I've loved seeing is people playing with the software with their friends and family and getting comfortable with it before they bring it into a clinical setting. So that would be my recommendation. If you feel any hesitancy, just use it with friends or family. Again, it's free. There's no credit card swipe. And after you do your trial, you can decide whether or not you want to continue. But that's the best way. It's like seeing is believing. It's magic. You try it a few times, and it's really, really hard to go back. So that's kind of the easiest way to get started. But the other thing I would say is email me. If you email contact@jotpsych.com, that's contact@jotpsych.com, you can send us feature requests. You can ask for access to our beta features. You can participate in our clinical advisory board if you'd like to. So there are a bunch of different ways to be involved. We see everyone who touches our software either becoming a customer or not becoming a customer as a partner. And we have a really, really deep sense that we're going to be in this ecosystem for a long time, and we want to know you, we want to understand you, and we want to learn to serve you better and better over time.
Love it. Love it. All right, Nate. Awesome. I mean, I love this. I'm glad I got to talk to you. So that's jotpsych.com. Simple.
Simple.
Right? Okay.
Yep.
We'll have that linked up here at the show notes page at the traumatherapistpodcast.com. Nate, appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. We'll be in touch.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me, Guy. Take care.
All right. Take care.